Hello, my name is Arthur, and in the last video we left off building a basic animation walk cycle for our little enemy character here. So we'll carry on with that. Now I've selected one of the leg bones just to remind that our keyframes are at 1, 10, 20, 30, and 40. Now technically, one of these keyframes should probably be at 0 to have our timing correct. So that would be correct timing, and this should probably start at 0. So that would correct our timing thing. Now, in the last video I was talking about getting him going up and down a little bit. So basically what we would look to do is in a passing pose, this is an equivalent of a passing pose, the body would come up, and in the contact pose, the body would come down. So more or less at 0, 10, at 10 and 30, the body would come up. So what we could do is we can insert one at the height he's at 10, 20, and 40. So we'd insert one there. And then at 10, we would bring him down a little bit, I believe. No, he would come up a little bit. So let's just see where that was. Make sure we're coming up. So we'll come up a little bit. We'll insert. We'll copy. We'll paste and insert. And then for his tail, I think that would be rotation, and on 0 we can do 10, 20, and 30 again. Location, rotation. Oops, that's wrong. Want to get up to 40. Location, rotation. And then perhaps have it rotated down a little bit, just to animate it some. So we'd insert that, copy the pose, and put the same pose at 30. So insert that, location, rotation, and then see what we get out of that. So yeah, it's pretty robotic, but it'll do. Now, the next animation we're going to make is for his head. So let's make a little animation for his mouth. Hopefully his mouth is working good. We're going to just insert a location rotation here. We'll rotate up. We better copy that because I didn't move any frames. Come forward about 5 frames, insert a frame for that. So that's basically going to be him opening his mouth and shutting his mouth. So my intention with this animation, once I've given him a little bit of material and given him a color, which we can pretty much do right now. Now his color, it doesn't need to be special or anything. We can do as much or as little as we want. You know, if a person wants to map on bump maps and make them a warty lizard, then may as well do that. But I'm just going to keep it simple, the same as the animations, and just get them working. So get an enemy character working. My intention with this character is that he can be jumped on to be killed, And his weapon, I'm going to try to make him breathe fire. So he'll open his mouth and shoot fire. So we've already demonstrated doing sprite sheets and how to do that. So yeah, that was demonstrated with the player. It's no different for this character. Now, about the only difference for this character is going to be sort of the length of his animation. And let's see here. We got one of those bones is out of place. So pretty much what there is to look at with this player is the length of his animation, because he doesn't need a 39 frame animation. So we'll put the playhead at 0, select the walk cycle, and we'll scale it until the spaces between them are even. There doesn't need to be a lot of frames here. So we could go as low as this, which is, this is basically a 7 frame animation now, 0 to 7. So let's go with that. Let's go with this very minimal animation. And then on his mouth opening, let's just make that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just make it 4 frames. Yeah, so he's about 11 frames of animation. And that's what I'll do with his sprite sheet. We'll experiment with this character like that. And then in the next video, we will look at making fire animation. So let's sort of just get into the render aspect for this character. So I'm going to go with a lot of the very standard stuff here. I don't think I used ambient occlusion in any of these. Now, for resolution on him, I would think 128 is the size of the character, 64 is the size of a block, and I'm thinking this should be a pretty small unit, so bigger than a block, but much smaller than a player character. So let's see, 96, 72 would probably be close. So let's start at a 72 by 72. And we'll get to the camera. And let's have a look through the camera. Okay, so we want Y on 0. We need to get to object mode because I'm not looking at the right object here. We'll look through the camera. X will be rotated at 90. I think Z would be 90 to get the side view. Z around 0. And Y at 0. And then our distance is coming through at X. We'll need to center better. So we'll come into the camera. We're going to go to orthographic camera. So we'll be centering with orthographic scale. And Y. So probably something like that for centering him. Then there's the other aspect that I'm looking at here. And that's the aspect that it'll probably be best to render the body and the head separately. So in the case of the head, what I would be looking at doing is rendering it as a separate object. Well, I would use the same framing. So we'd be looking something like this. The Y would be down at 36 at least. That would get him centered and plenty of pixels there. So he'll be able to play through his animation, which is actually only 7 frames now. And then his mouth opening animation, we just need to make sure it stays in frame. So that's in frame. Yeah, I will render the head by itself. So what I would look to do is visibility. I'll toggle render off for the pieces that I don't want to render. So I'll render the animation for his head with just the head showing. And I'll render the animation for his body with just the body showing. So that would mean turn off his head. And then it will be assembled in Godot. That way his head will be able to shoot at any point in time in his walk cycle. So hopefully that explanation is clear and is enough for people to be able to see the direction that animation is going in. So I'll render these up and make the sprite sheet, and in the next video we'll look at how to make a fire animation for them. And until then, take care.